Michael J. here. It is now Thursday, April 3, 2025, the day after the Trump tariffs. What Donald Trump called the liberation of the American state, or the country. So the Trump tariffs came out yesterday. Today, the rest of the world is just recovering from the onslaught of their cause and effect. Now we're going to backtrack here. This is an article by The Guardian. This is like 5 months ago. Fascist, conman, predator, cheat. What 11 former Trump staffers say about him now. And here we go. Mark Esper, Defense Secretary. Alicia Farah Griffin. See her on a lot on CNN. And then Rex Tillerson, Secretary of State, finally put up his hands and said, Donald Trump, you're a fucking moron. Beep, 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 beep. Yipperdoodle. So there you go. Now, if we look here in the top right corner, Canada Trump tariff exemption, like dodging a bullet into the path of a tank, says business leader. You say, what? Yeah, can you imagine that? Can you imagine that? Life is a cabaret, my friend. Life is a cabaret. So there you go. You got it. So now what we're going to do here is we're going to go to an interview that just happened with, of all people, a guy by the name of Scott Bessent. Now, who's that guy? Well, he's the Secretary-Treasurer of the Trump administration. You think the Secretary-Treasurer would know what's going on with any policy as far as the economy with respect to the Trump administration. Or so you would think. So here we have CNN Kate Collins. She's going to interview Mr. Scott Bessent. The headline is Treasury Secretary urges other countries to take a deep breath and not retaliate. You say, what? This guy's telling you to take a deep breath and not retaliate. So, we just finished in 2020 at the start of an event that had not happened in over 100 years, which was the great pandemic of 2020, which we're still recovering from. And then we've got to deal with this guy, Donald J. Trump. I don't know who the idiots were that put him in power. But we have a lot of them here in Canada as well. And they support the Conservative Party of Pierre Poilievre and Daniel Smith, and maybe Scott Moe in Saskatchewan, Daniel Smith of Alberta. And this is where the real issue is. Because now you're able to see what happens when you have a group of people that support these far-right ideologies and how dangerous it is right now. And why do I say that? It's just because the policies are no good. The tax cuts and the free markets are no good. They want to privatize your health care, which compromises your health care and affordability. Tax cuts and free markets. But let's pivot back to the dog, the big dog that's wagging its tail, and the Canadian economy and the Canadian people are affected by this tail wagging of this big dog known as the United States of America, who think that their shit doesn't stink. And that's the real issue here. And nonetheless, you have some great people in the United States that embrace everyone in a loving, harmonious manner. So there you go. But the dichotomy is we're dealing with far-right extremism around the world. Just can't let go and let the people live the way people are meant to be. No reason why anybody's got to be out in the street. No reason why you've got 1% of the population has to have more money than some countries. Just makes no sense. Should not be anyone left out in the street without a roof over their head and food on the table. Simple as that. So we're going to get Scott Collins here. Let's get this going.
When you look at the sum total of all of the numbers on the chart that the president brought out in the Rose Garden earlier, the United States is about to have the highest tariff rates in the world. I sat down with a
So I was muted. I had a good thing going there.
Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent about all of that and more at the White House earlier. And Secretary Bessent.
Let's be clear about one thing before this starts. The byline is Trump announces sweeping new tariffs on all imports. And I'm going to make another statement. After the Second World War, the world gave the United States the privilege of being the reserve currency of the world for trade around the world. And what have they done? They've abused that privilege. They racked up deficits in ways that no other country can. 2008, because of deregulation of banking, and private banking got out of control. It caused an economic crisis that friggin' brought the economy around the world to its knees. And now here we have tariffs that just came out yesterday that the world hasn't seen in over 100 years. So the Americans just cannot seem to get over themselves. You're looking at greed and a penchant for causing harm to others without compunction. It's really sad, the fact that the world has to experience that. And then you have this guy, Scott Bessent. Now, what's ironic about this gentleman? Where'd he make his money? Working for George Soros. You got a conservative government in the United States. And you got a guy that's the Treasury Secretary that worked for George Soros. Isn't that ironic? How many conservatives have said, oh, that's a George Soros puppet working for the Democrats. George Soros puppet for the Democrats. And here you have a guy, George Soros puppet, working for the Republicans. It's part and parcel to destroying the world's economy again and doing it without compunction. He made his money shorting currencies. Can you believe it? Shorting currencies. And the other thing is you got Trump that can make billions of dollars with Bitcoin. But I don't understand Bitcoin because it's not worth anything. It's just another scam to create money that doesn't exist out of something that doesn't exist, to make it exist and give it value and still leave people out desolate by the curb that need to be fed, and a few are just profiting billions of dollars. Why do you need a guy like Elon Musk worth how many hundreds of billions of dollars? And what's he doing? He goes into U.S. aid, or even goes into Social Security, asks somebody, and with a bunch of young guys that are just hackers, they put a front on with CNN and other media where they have these guys that formerly of executives of certain companies just to put a front up. But when they go into U.S. aid and Social Security, he just walks in with a bunch of hackers. He asks somebody at the desk, well, what's that server for? That person at the desk says, I don't know, because, just might be a secretary. They might have a certain capacity, which has limited functions within the bureaucracy that they're working. And so what does Musk say? Well, let's pull the plug on this server and see what happens. What a way to do business. Only in America, you say. Nonetheless, let's get back to the topic at hand. Mr. Scott Bessent, Treasury Secretary. Caitlin, take it away.
Thank you so much for being here. This is obviously a massive announcement that the president just made. I know there were a lot of options being considered behind the scenes, different pathways. How did the president come to this decision?
Well, look, the president's had a vision for a long time. He's been talking about tariffs. He implemented China tariffs in his first term. So,
yikes. Donald J. Trump's had a vision? He implemented tariffs in his first term? Absolutely. Hallelujah. But here's the thing. The soybean business in the Midwest of the United States got decimated by those tariffs that Trump placed against the Chinese. The soybean farmers in the American Midwest spent over a decade developing the business. Then it required a bailout by the Trump administration. This is first term 2018. A bailout to the tune of $26 billion to make up for cause and effect and the detriment to the business cycle of the Midwest farmers, never to recover. Beautiful tariffs. Worked great. $26 billion bailout by the United States of America to make a point about tariffs. You didn't learn the first time, and you're doing it again. And only this time, this social experiment is to the detriment of the world.
So, he has been thinking about this for a long time, and with the reciprocal tariffs, there are a group of factors. Is one, what's the other country's tariffs? As important, or sometimes more importantly, what are the non-tariff barriers? Is there currency manipulation, and is there unfair subsidy to labor or finance cost?
Yeah, and when you look at this on the reciprocal tariffs themselves, how did you come up with the calculation essentially in terms of what this looks like for each country? Because obviously we're looking at the numbers here. There are different ones. And I can see some of the countries disputing some of these reciprocal tariffs, saying that's not actually what we charge. What would your response to that be?
Well, I can tell you USTR has the volumes of data, and they've been doing it a long time. So, and all this will probably be challenged in court. And I think that USTR in Trump's first administration won over 4,000 lawsuits. So I think the data is very robust.
So you expect that if there are any legal challenges that the administration would be successful on that front?
I think the data is very robust, and it's going to be difficult to challenge.
And as we're looking at this, on China, for example, some of the nations, there's the baseline 10% tariff, and there's a reciprocal tariff. China has this 34% tariff. There were already 20% tariffs in place on China. So is that 34% on top of that, meaning it's a 54% reciprocal tariff on China?
I believe it is.
Okay. And so when you look at that,
he believes it is. He can't say for a fact he knows it is. Treasury Secretary. This is what happens when you have a man-child predator that's the President of the United States, that's a control freak on top of that. Nobody knows what's going on. That's why the terror... Oh, okay. So much dysfunction. Nobody can do anything unless it comes from Donald Trump. Amazing.
On the reciprocal tariffs, as these are going to an effect, I imagine some of these countries are going to call and try to...
Like, what's the point of hiring people to do a function within a capacity, within an administration, when you don't let them do their job? Like, it just makes no friggin' sense. Brilliant businessman. Give me a break.
To negotiate this. Is that an option for these countries over the next few days, or what is the White House's mindset on that?
Well, I think the mindset is let's just see where we are, and then we'll see how President Trump feels about all this.
Okay.
The mindset. Let's just see where we are and what Donald Trump thinks about it. Come on, folks. What kind of nonsense is this? You put this guy into position. What kind of social experiment is this? Really, what kind of social experiment is this? And the Canadian people have to be subjected to that. And not just that. I'm going to show you just one other thing before I cut this one off.
So it's essentially up to...
Whoopsie. I just want to show you this here. Now, we have conservatives in Canada. And Daniel Smith went down to visited Trump in Mar-a-Lago with Kevin O'Leary to say pause the tariffs because the Liberals are getting traction in the polls. We don't want that. And we want Pierre Poilievre to win the election because he's more in sync with your policies, Mr. Trump, and would be a better fit for you to deal with. Those were her exact words. These were her exact actions. And Pierre Poilievre just denies everything. Danielle Smith just denies everything. It's just like Putin and the Russian hoax and the Russian propagandists that are manipulating conservatives in the United States and Canada. They create the problem, then they deny the problem exists, or they fix the problem, then deny that the problem and the fix is their problem. Gotta love this friggin' stuff. Propaganda at its best. But we're going to go back to the main screen. Canadian guy on the East Coast. He's got almost 100,000 subscribers. Just posted 5 hours ago. You just got to see this. Okay, so let's look at this. Carney humiliated as Trump destroys liberal platform in one evening. Like, Fox News has manipulated the media down in the United States for a conservative by the name of Trump. They're trying to manipulate the media so that you can get Pierre Poilievre into power and Daniel Smith. It's not what we need here in Canada, folks. We need to pivot in a total different direction and take care of ourselves, and nobody gets it. Well, let's see what this guy, Josh, I think.
Oh, baby. Oh, baby. It is a beautiful...
5 hours ago, this guy made this post. Is he excited?
Oh, baby. Oh, baby. It is a beautiful Thursday morning. It is awesome. It's great to be alive.
And people lap up this crap. You gotta, you're entitled to do what you want, folks. But if you think this is going to make your life better, What am I to say differently?
I hope my laugh and that shrill screech, woke you up on this beautiful Thursday. Because, well, the Liberals' platform just got ripped out from under them. It's over. It is done. This is getting very, very interesting. What do you mean, Josh? What was in the news? What's been going on? What happened overnight that's leading you to say that this morning? Well, we had, the big anticipated April 2nd. Make sure it wasn't April 1st. It was April 2nd. Make sure it wasn't on April Fool's Day. Mr. Donald Trump released his tariffs for the world, or as he liked to call, Liberation Day. This is where he announced his plans for how he's going to tariff every nation in their trade relationship. Expecting Canada to get hit hard because that was been the threat, that Canada was going to get hit hard. Well, it turns out Canada was untouched through this whole announcement. We still have some tariffs applied to us in other industries, but with this announcement today, we haven't even been touched.
There you go. Ignorance at its best. Just add another ladle of soup into that friggin' ladle and put it in my bowl because I need to lap it up. You just heard it right here. So, this is the highest order of ignorance. What can I say? It is what it is. But nonetheless, this is what people are buying into because people just don't know any better. Absolutely do not know any better. And this is the furthest from the truth. But they have a following. They manipulate that following. Can't make decisions for themselves. So, folks, listen. You need to make your own decisions here in Canada about who you're going to vote for. And if you really think tax cuts are going to do it for you, which is all the Pierre Poilievre government's got for you, it's not going to work because you're going to have to take from the service side, and that means healthcare cuts and various other cuts. It's just not going to work in this economy right now and the way things are going. Trump is setting up the world for a friggin' crash, unfortunately. Canada has to remake its economy, and Pierre Poilievre does not have the wherewithal, the tools, or the knowledge in how to make a remake of the Canadian economy. Mark Carney's the only one. He's gone over to Europe already to start working on new alliances. And these are the facts. Number 2, Donald Trump, that we were so worried about, actually has been able to be tamed somewhat after one call from Mark Carney. So, how long that's going to last, we don't know. Trump is a predator. But the fact of the matter is, we've got a guy in the saddle right now, and if we elect him, we got a better chance of remaking this economy, setting Canada up for a different economic landscape. Otherwise, tax cuts are not going to cut it. Free markets are not going to cut it. And this guy, Josh, I believe it's Josh, Juno News, Canadian Federation of Tax Cuts, all you're trying to do is marry us, tie us back at the hip to the Americans. Americans don't care about anybody right now. We've got to take care of ourselves. So don't think going back and getting on your hands and knees to Trump's going to work. He's just going to abuse that privilege. He's going to abuse that privilege, use you for his benefit, because that's the only way he knows of dealing with people. So wake up. Questions, comments, throw in the chat. Love and peace to everybody. When you're spiraling out of control, anxiety's got a hold of you. Take a few deep breaths. Don't overreact. Just sleep on it. Take care. Do what my buddies do. Ciao for now. Love and peace to everybody.